Hello everybody. While Brawl with this next step won't have any cards rotating for Standard Brawl, multiple sets will be rotating out. Dominaria United, The Brothers War, Phyrexia All will be one, March of the Machine and March of the Machine Aftermath will be rotating, and what impact will it have on the format with the sets leaving? Let's begin. So first of all, we're going to be checking which commanders will be leaving the set and their impact on their format. As for white, Squirrel will be leaving, which was quite powerful for a poison deck, but mainly just in the 99 for white decks. It will be missed. Mondract is also going to be leaving Standard Brawl for those token doublers. As for Elish Nor, Mother Machine was another quite useful commander to deny ETBs and get ETB doublers. As for blue, I would say not necessarily in the command zone, but in the 99. Jace the Perfected Mind, leaving the format means any sort of mill deck that benefited in Standard Brawl will now have to replace this card. It did not mill half the library, but it had many ways to stabilize the board, which is quite important, and being able to use that minus X, milling 10, 15 cards, if not more. Keep looking. Braid, as for black, black's probably getting the hardest hit because you're losing Braids. You're going to be losing, very importantly, Gix, Liliana, and the Shield Reds. The biggest, of course, of the losses will be Liliana of the Veil. This card was just so powerful. Even though she is a quite powerhouse in Brawl, Standard Brawl, if she was not the best commander, she was up there. I wouldn't be surprised she was top 3, if not higher. The ability to, from the command zone, have a way to force the opponent to discard and force out almost on her own most mid-range archetypes of her -2 ability. Being able to just deny medium to large size creatures if you dealt with the small creatures is so powerful, and her +1 completely destroyed any slow deck that wanted to go for a combo win, for example. Gix is quite powerful as well, being able to draw multiple cards and run a very similar shell to disrupt the opponent as Liliana, but you are a lot more aggressive and more creature reliant. I do have to say there are commanders in the format currently before rotation that kept Gix in check. And the example would be Raul can definitely beat this matchup. Elspeth probably is one of Elspeth's best matchups because they can clock the board so Gix won't get his plus triggers, and that minus ability can just deal with Gix's board pretty easily. For Shieldred, mainly played in the 60 of a deck. Also as a commander is not bad at all, but mainly her big PowerPoint is punishes card draw. So any blue deck really did not want to see Shieldred in the board and needed to deal with immediately, or any sort of card draw was just devastating. Karamanix is not really much of a big loss in Standard Brawl because you can't run Rat Colony in Standard Brawl, and is still decent in Brawl as well. As for red, Koth is probably the biggest one. Koth as a big red was one of the best enablers. The ability to search a mountain was quite powerful, and that -3 is not bad at all. Sulfurum is okay, but I actually didn't see him almost at all in Standard Brawl. He's a lot more prevalent in 100-card Brawl because there are significant more sources to do non-combat damage. Urabrask, he's a lot stronger in Brawl than in Standard Brawl. Actually, I have not seen him once in Standard Brawl. Not that he's unplayable, but there's a lot less options for one mana spells. He really cares for many 1-mana spells and have card draw, so you're able to chain multiple red sources. Etali, of course, one of the big bad guys for Standard Brawl. He's a lot more manageable in a 100-card brawl. Still is forced to be reckoned with, but in Standard Brawl, there were just very few things the opponent can do to deal with you. Even if Liliana didn't close the game, by the time Italy got to 7 mana, it was pretty much over. Control decks just have such a hard time into Italy because you're able to get 3 permanents for the price of 1. And if the opponent only has single target removal and not counter magic, the Italy just, even if they fetched a ramp spell, next turn they play Italy and they have to deal the same problem again because he on his own he can pay his commander cost. Made it very difficult to deal with. Nissa Standard Brawl I've seen a little bit. It's still just your typical ramp deck that requires interaction or you lose the game because the format is a tad little bit slower. Makes Nissa a complete powerhouse. She has many ways to landfall in Standard Brawl. There's still quite a few ways. You'd get so much mana to play your giant creatures. Oh, it is one of the other big ramp decks that were very powerful. Winner from the 99 is another interesting card. I think the biggest 2 losses for green are Nissa and Vorinclex. Nissa is used quite a bit as a secondary Crater Hoof for mono green, but Vorinclex, every single green deck I believe uses Vorinclex. It may be the biggest loss for green, is that advantage of getting 2 forests, having the transformation to become the Saga, and the biggest hits. Another for Standard Brawl, Harbin. Harbin is a very powerful commander. If you want to try him before he rotates, he works very well in Standard Brawl and in 100-card Brawl. I played him in both formats. He is one of the stronger cards. I'd say Azorius, none of them are significant loss. Maybe Sten if you want to play control deck, but Azorius, as long as you had any other placeholder commander, was not that bad. I believe there's not really that much of a loss for Azorius. The stronger Azorius commanders won't be rotating. As for Orzhov, the biggest one is going to be Kaya. Kaya, Intangible Slayer. With its -3 ability, it was the premier Orzhov commander to play. And her ability to just play a bunch of removal. She has hexproof, so you have to beat her with direct damage. And her +2 to get your drain ability was a win condition on a Planeswalker. If you got to 7 mana, it was pretty much lights out into most decks. Dimir doesn't lose much. Urtai is pretty good in the 99. He was one of the losses. As for Izzet, Sarkhan, but Sarkhan's better in Brawl. I don't think I've seen it in Standard Brawl. Rakdos, Rivets and Sarkhan are going to be missed because we just had Tarkir Dragonstorm. They have very good synergy with these 2 cards. But they're still quite powerful in Brawl, so it's not the end of the world for those decks. As for Rakdos, I think that's all for Rakdos really. For Golgari, Tyvar. I don't remember seeing Tyvar in Standard Brawl, but he was not bad. But definitely there are with the more recent sets that are significantly stronger Planeswalkers than Tyvar. Made it a bit difficult to play. Gliss is very powerful in Brawl, and I've seen her in Standard Brawl. Almost tried to avoid the 100Q Brawl, but with her rotation, she's only really going to be present in Brawl. And unfortunately, she is up there in the highest queue. You play Glissa, you have to expect your opponents playing the strongest commanders available. Going for Gruul. I say other than Kogla and Luca, these are 2 big losses. There's not that much ramp, and the advantage of Luca is that he gave a lot of mana, he had many ways to gain creatures, and you can play the completed cost for 4. Kogla is one of the best cards. I would say this is the biggest loss in Gruul, because if you're going to play big creature Gruul, you wanted a creature that have a powerful enters ability, and Kogla and Jadara's ability to fight is what made Group pretty decent. Continuing with Boros. I don't think any of the Boros I've seen in Standard Brawl. Jura and Hazaret is quite good in Brawl, but you need a lot more legendaries. I believe there's just not enough. Pia also sees a little bit play. That's about it. I don't think Brawl loses too much. Selesnya also doesn't lose too much. Sigarda Fun of Blessing is okay, but it definitely got outscaled with significantly better commanders. Queen Alenol. It was decent, but I do believe they're just better Selesnya commanders. As for Simic, Ivy is just powerful in every format she's in. She's pretty much the commander where if you do not have interaction, you just lose the game because you get to make her so incredibly powerful and get to a point that Ivy and a buddy gets to very high strength and toughness. Now for multicolored. I don't remember. I've seen Zer, but in Brawl. I don't know if she's that great in Standard Brawl. Probably the biggest loss was going to be Atraxa. Atraxa Grand Unifier is a complete powerhouse in any format she's in. Same as Liliana. They are the top losses. I would say the big four are Atraxa Grand Unifier, Liliana of the Veil, Atali. And the fourth one is a toss-up, but it could be Joda or it could be Gix. Are very powerful. Omnath is it's decent, but I would say not to the level of the other four. Those are the big ones. Zergo and Narset see some play. I believe I've seen Narset. Narset in Standard Brawl. She is pretty useful. Another be one of the bigger losses, especially as it's a bit of unique archetype with prowess. Zergo Ojutai is also not bad control deck on Jeskai, but is still very useful in Brawl. Now, let's go from the 99, the loss in the 99. The big ones for white. Let's go for color for color. For white, we have Lay Down Arms. Skrelv, Surge of Salvation was so good. I really like this card in any format because you and the permanents you control gain hexproof, so the opponent played a Thoughtseize or a Duress, you were able to protect yourself. There are some removal spells. Invasion of Gobakhan, I'd say it's the only battle I actually use in any format. There are very few battles that I run. Normally, as an archetype, battles weren't that great, but Invasion of the Gobakhan is the only one I would say was legitimately good. Both sides were powerful, and it's a cheap permanent. Being able to see their hand and make their best spell cost 2 more, plus the transformation to Light Shield Array is just a win con on its own. Very good for creature decks. It's going to be one of the biggest losses. Ossification is another big card that's going to be lost. Recommission is one of the few reanimation spells. I do have to say, one of the advantages Standard Brawl has over Brawl, especially for mono white, is up to this rotation, all the small creature reanimation spells were in Standard Brawl. So with them gonna be a couple gonna be leaving, the format is gonna hit white as a whole quite a bit. Especially those 3 or less mana cost creatures are gonna be hit with the loss of recommission like effects. Inex Sentry is another really good creature. I run in every single white deck. One of the biggest losses, let's say. Lauren, I use it from time to time. Tokasia's Welcome is going to be a big loss for Elspeth, mainly. The Planeswalker Elspeth really likes Tokasian Welcome and use the Bloomburrow card as well. Another way to draw cards, one of the few ways, so it is. So that Elspeth is gonna be hit by the loss of Tukasi's Welcome. Mondra, we talked about Mondrak leaving. Good at 99. Muriel as a commander. Not as powerful, I would say, as in Brawl. But it's gonna be one of the bigger losses for token decks, especially when they're white. Stagnant effects is another big loss, as well with Prayer of the Binding. Normally you would say what decks runs these. Hope Esting really like this card because it was a removal and gained life. That means if you had your commander on play, on end step they would also mill 2 cards. So I would say those are the biggest losses for that commander. I'd say Convoke is also going to be lost with Night Errant of Eos, Sunfall, but I believe the new set is going to have another Sunfall effect, so it's not big of a difference. 5 color decks are going to lose the ley line. I like Steel Seraph. It was a pretty good creature in Standard Brawl. One of the disadvantages, even though you had many ways to reanimate creatures with 3 power or less, you couldn't reanimate the prototype version because the base form was a 5/4. As for blue, we talked about Jace, some cantrips, which is going to hurt a bit. Training grounds, a couple decks use them. We'll quickly pass. Mercurial's Spell Dancer was useful. Fairy Mastermind, but they're not that big of a hit. Search Engine was really good. I like that in. Still play quite a bit in Brawl. Holy Jin was nice. But there are not that many decks that run the Jin, unless you run an Oculus variant. Oculus is still going to be in Standard Brawl, but not Huddy Jin is a bigger loss. Keep moving forward. Jace, we talked about, he's going to be one of the biggest losses for blue. But blue in general does not lose that much. Teferi. And of course, well, one with the universe. The Terrasian Mindbreaker is another big hit for Mill. They're gonna lose Jace, the Mindbreaker. So West team's gonna lose 4 big cards that they really liked. Gonna hit that deck quite significantly. Silver Scrutiny was also a good card draw. Talked about black a bit. Cut down Dreams of Steel and Oil and Disfigure with Duress. I believe Duress is still in Foundations, I could be wrong. But the big one is we're gonna. Standard Brawl does not have that much hand hate, so losing 1 hand hate card and cut down is gonna make black decks a lot weaker for this next rotation. Join with Affliction was a really good, especially one of the best answers into Vivi, because Vivi really relied on not only cantrips but also counter magic. One of the big ways. Also had other decks have Return from Graveyard, so exiling them is good. Oh, this is not the uncounterable one. I believe that's still in rotation. My bad. But Annoying Affliction is still a big loss, as it also hits creatures that have Indestructible. Go for Throw is another of the biggest loss. It's gonna hurt quite a bit the black decks. Shieldred's Edict may be the biggest loss for black. Oh, see, paired with Liliana, they are the biggest loss because Planeswalkers are very powerful. It was one of the few ways to directly hit the opponent's commander. I would say this may be the biggest loss for black, paired with Liliana. Talk about Braids, also Gixis will leave as well. Liliana, the people did not like it at all as a commander in the 99, in the 60 of the deck in Standard Brawl. She was pretty much a must pick card. Phyrexian Arena was into the few card draw effects, so black's gonna lose a lot of powerful creatures. Gonna be significantly weaker. Phyrexian Obliterator with Shieldred. This card single-handedly could stop creature decks. Black's probably the biggest loss. No One Left Behind was a pretty cute card to get your cheap commanders out. Gix's Command was a decent board wipe. Also, the 5-mana Shieldred sees some play. They lose a board wipe with the Invasion of Fiora. Reach the Multiverse, another removal spell. That's getting hit the hardest by far. They lose most of their best cards with this rotation. So Black's going to be significantly weaker, for better or for worse. As for red is not that prevalent. I would say red can get away with almost anything. Dragon decks were not that prevalent. I'm not seeing a really big card other than Koth. Brotherhood's End. It's very important to keep in mind how many cheap board wipes in red are being lost, because Izzet is a very prevalent control deck. Ral is still going to be in rotation, and they do rely on those cheap board wipes for the early game. So for them, losing Brotherhood's End, it's going to hit them pretty hard. Makes the odds of them drawing the board wipe or having one in their hand very difficult. Purpose Forge, some ranks use it, but not that crazy. Invasion of Karsus is another big board wipe they're losing. Ooh, we already talked about Ka, so they're losing 2 board wipes. You can even consider 3, but Elden Dragon War is not that great. It's a big difference between 2 to 3. A lot of creatures are 3 toughness. Chandra's another planeswalker that was kind of a board wipe. Talked about Atali. The Green's the big thing for red is they're losing 2 board wipes. That's their biggest loss. I would say that pairing with black, that may be the biggest hits for Standard Brawl. Black's gonna get hit the hardest. Mildix a little bit are gonna get hit. White is, they do lose a bit, but I would say red. Red is the second biggest loss for now. Those 2 board wipes matter so much for the planeswalker decks. Green, say the biggest card that's still in the format is the elf. They're not getting that many elves. They're losing one of their mana rocks. Keep going. You have some creatures, but I would say none must-haves. One of the strongest cards still in the format is the Talents. They're not going to be rotating. A couple planeswalkers are going to be losing. Wena is quite nice for green decks. It would be one of the few creatures that are going to be missed. Trip to World Tree, I see some decks. I think it's more of a bait card. It's a bit too slow even for Standard Brawl. Invasion of Zendikar is one of the only other battle I would say saw some sort of play. But the difference between Invasion of Goa-Kent to Zendikar was night and day. Zendikar was playable, but later it was still cut, especially in Brawl. Format's gotten so fast that you don't even have time for Invasion of Zendikar anymore. But Invasion of Goa-Kent is quite good. Defiler Vigor is one of probably the biggest hit, paired with Vorinclex. Those 2 are the strongest cards that are going to be leaving. Thrawn, but I didn't see that many decks run Thrawn in Standard Brawl. Anti-Rex is another really big hit. So Gruul's going to be hit quite hard. As for big creature Gruul in Standard Brawl, they lose Nissa, they lose the Tyrannix Rex, they lose Vorinclex, and the Defiler Vigor. The Green's going to be a lot weaker on the big creature side. So big Ramp's going to be hit on the higher end. And they also lose Tiber Stand, that's also useful. Genetic Core is more prevalent in Brawl than Standard Brawl. As for multicolored, I'm going for a quick check. None will really play Kaya, we talked about. Urtai. NC Itsuga and Carry? Let's see, I played against them in Brawl, but not in Standard Brawl. As for is it really in the multicolor, not much. Rakdos, not much. We talked about Glissa, Divar. Ooh, Fogla is a big one. Boros, not really. Bosnia, not really. I believe that's about it. Last check. Valley was played a bit. Narset as well. We already talked about these. And quick check to multicolor. I believe the battle is another of the biggest losses. Relic was played a bit in Standard Brawl. Ooh, two swords are leaving. So Cloud's gonna be a bit worse. The mono white Cloud. I would say those are the biggest losses. I would say for white if you want to play Cloud or the equipment decks. They really relied on the swords. Invasion Ravnica, some decks ran it. I ran a lot the weak stone, Mike Stone. Portal. Another of the big creatures, Siskate Leveler is gonna leaving. There's quite a few. So we have to make a summary of what are the biggest losses. I would say the big creatures with the leveler. There's two swords. Very quickly here. Trux is a bit lost. Narset as well. Go for the quick recap. Luca and Kogla are also big losses. Bliss, I would say, is a big one. Thor is really not that much. I would say a lot of the big creatures, as well with Vorinclex, as well as the Filer. Those are the biggest losses. Nis as well is going to be leaving. I didn't even put. No. As for red, well, we have Itali, but he's in Gruul. Chandra is the big loss. I would say the two board wipes. Koth is also not bad, but Invasion of Karsus as well as Brother Hussein. Those two cards may seem just two, but they impact the Izzet control quite heavily. I would say for black, there are so many cards, but Gix's Command is a gigantic loss. Children and the Obliterator are leaving. The Archfiend is leaving. Liliana is a big one. Even mentioned Phyrex in Arena. The form is a little bit slow enough where Arena was very good. Gix is leaving. Children's Edict is a huge loss. Go for the Throat is gone, as well as with Affliction. Cut Down. Dreams of Steel and Oil. Blue, I'm only gonna put the mill ones. I would say those are the only ones that really matter. And for white, Lay Down Arms was very good. Scrub, Surge were very good. Invasion, Ossification. I can put Recommission paired with NX. They hurt, but they're not the end of the world. I'll say those are the big ones. And Toge's is welcome. Those are all the biggest losses. If we have to measure which was the biggest color that's going to get hit, I'll say number one is going to be black. Black loses the most. Is really going to hurt them in the format, as many of the cards were used, even in the 99. They were just that good. The big removal loss is going to hurt them quite a bit. Second biggest hit, I was saying red, but maybe green after. Let's say green is the biggest color that's going to get hit, because many of the pairings were not only in green but with red. But so many large creatures, overrun abilities are all lost here with green. They lose Tyrannus Rex, and Nissa, Vorinclex, the Filer, some ramp spells, multicolor spells with Kogla. So green is the biggest the second biggest loss. I'll say third. Third is going to be white. White loses quite a bit powerful creatures. I would say mono white specifically. There is an argument that mono white is the biggest loss with secondary color because they lose ossification with Annex Sentry. As white really struggled, mono white really struggled. Lay down arms, ossification, Annex Sentry were just so useful in mono white. So mono white's taking the biggest hit, I would say. Multicolored white is not the end of the world. I would include the equipment as they lose their best equipment. Blue's probably the least lost. Third, I would say, is red. Oh, see, fourth is red. They lose their board wipes. That's gonna hit Izzet quite a bit. And then last would be blue. If you cared about mill, it's gonna hit quite a bit. Otherwise, it's not that big of a loss. As for commanders, we had Atraxa, Obnath, Liliana, Gix are all leaving the format, as well with the tally. That'll be the big summary. Black got the biggest hit. I'll say second would be green, third would be white, next would be red, and finally blue got the least changes. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment below. What cards will you be missing from Standard Brawl that are rotating out? Thanks for watching.